Hi, I'm Randy Cross, and this is the Randy Cross Podcast. Welcome back. Season 6, Episode 7. Today we've taken a little break, but we're going to get back at it now. It's going to be just an interview with a couple other segments, but it'll be relatively shorter than some of the other ones. And it's mainly because of our guest. We're talking to Dr. Chris Nowinski. And Chris is one of the founders of the Concussion Legacy Foundation up at Boston University. They are right on the edge of everything that's going on with brain injuries and any kind of TBI, CTE specifically, all the cutting edge research and everything else. We're going to talk to him about how that's going, because we've had him on before. But the reason I wanted to get him on really was, he was the go-to guy when Tua Tagovailoa got his first injury. And then he was the go-to guy when he had his second injury. And now his backup, Teddy Bridgewater, has had a head injury. And there are other players now in various sports that are getting head injuries. And it's been proven that repetitive head injuries are not good for you down the road when it comes to things like CTE. And, there's enough enablers in the media. I don't want to be an enabler. If I wanted to be an enabler, I'd be a feature columnist or I'd be a reporter, because it's a lot easier to enable that way. Because goodness knows when all this stuff happened, there were enough people brown-nosing and sucking up to the NFL about how, guys like this, specifically referencing Chris Nowinski, just kind of a fly-by-night opinion. Yeah, right. Okay. Well, I'll let you be the judge, because we're going to talk right now to Dr. Chris Nowinski. All right, as promised, a guest on this show is Chris Nowinski of the Concussion Legacy Foundation, one of the founders. He played football and at Harvard. He did a little wrestling. He's now been doing this for a few decades, let's put it that way. And they are the best, the cutting edge when it comes to all this research that's being done into brain injuries. Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Randy. Thanks for all you do for us.
It's been my pleasure. It really has. So what's the latest at Concussion Legacy Foundation?
Well, it's been a busy fall. You saw probably, it'll start in the summer. Like Demaryius Thomas was another case that we took public that he had CTE when he died at 33 and died of a seizure from a traumatic brain injury, which is very sad. And that same week, we diagnosed the first MLS player with CTE. He was 44 when he died. And so we're getting a lot more, aggressive on our prevention efforts, because we're just seeing how many people are affected by CTE. We've now studied almost 400 NFL players, and it's most of them. So we launched a campaign in September called Stop Hitting Kids in the Head. So we're asking global sports, football, soccer, rugby, to change how they play so that kids don't get CTE. We hope it's an easy discussion to have, but obviously they're going to fight because it's change, and some places have started to move, like the Football Association in the UK banned heading until 12, but I think American football is going to be last. We expand to Australia. We've got this international strategy where we are trying to recruit the world's best scientists to the battle against CTE. So we're in Canada, UK, and now Australia. And it's been really interesting to see how it sort of starts to snowball when we start working together on this. And the NFL can no longer recruit doctors from Australia to say, we've never seen CTE in our country because our brain bank there has proved it. So it's, we're leaning hard on prevention this year, and then we're just continuing to try to push that rock up the hill so we can diagnose and treat CTE.
Well, obviously the whole head injury subject has gotten a heck of a lot more coverage here in the last couple of weeks, with what started off with Tua Tagovailoa and that hit that was a supposed back or neck injury. And then sadly for him, he gets hurt again that next Thursday night. His backup, Teddy Bridgewater, he gets a concussion. Really, what's it going to take for just the mainstream in sports just to get their stuff together when it comes to dealing with head injuries? Because you can't say that there's one sport that is just light years ahead. It seems they're all sort of dragging on it.
Yeah. I mean, I thought with the NFL is in a better place. I honestly didn't think we'd have to be talking about concussion protocols during the season. And what happened to Tua was such a failure at every level of the system, and not once but twice. They failed him Sunday, and they failed him every moment until Thursday. So yeah, we have. I mean, the problem is at the pro sports level, it's always going to be a balance of trying to minimize the injury. Players themselves try to minimize the injury because they know that the team might cut them if they get too many concussions. They know that the replacement might get their job if they're seen as not being durable. And so it's this weird sort of, game of chicken where we're just all pretending like concussions aren't this monstrous problem that we have to deal with. And it sets a terrible example for the public. But yeah, I mean, what happened with Tua was a true like medical disaster. The idea that the only good thing that came out of Tua was that the media and the fans, none of them bought the Dolphins BS about it being a back injury. Like we're all having this. Even People Magazine today wrote an article that the headline was, Tua coming back after 2 concussions. And it's like, well, the Dolphins never called it a concussion. The NFL says that wasn't a concussion. It's like, and everyone's like, yeah, really?
Yeah.
So that
they didn't buy. The media didn't buy it after the second one.
Yeah.
The first one that was called a back injury, they played right along with that. That was like, oh yeah, okay. Isn't that the players' stock kind of excuse? They know they can't, if they have a concussion, they're out for at least a week.
Yeah.
They'll tell the doctor it's my neck or it's my back. It's not my head.
The New York Times did publish an article saying, a bunch of players were concussed, including, and they quoted me saying Tua definitely had a concussion, that it was the back injury was bullshit. Like that's what I tweeted when it happened. So they quoted that, so it was out there, but of course, again, that's like that's not necessarily the sports media. So it was interesting. I mean, because I was even fine with them calling it a back injury, like because like I know that calling it a concussion will cost Tua money, and I don't want to hurt him. But then when they didn't use the back injury as a cover story to leave him out Thursday, that's when they just became unforgivable. I mean, and that's why I sent out that tweet 4 hours before the game saying, Tua gets a second concussion night, everyone should lose their jobs, because it was so obvious he was at such high risk. And the NFL was promoting the game as Tua versus Joe. They wanted him out there to sell the Thursday Night Football for Amazon. And so that's when I thought, okay, the NFL, I was certain the chief medical officer of the NFL would call and say, what are you guys, nuts? But he didn't, and instead he's been defending them, so he's lost a lot. I was feeling hopeful for him because he's the technically the 5th, because they had a 2-headed monster for a while, chief medical officer they've had, and I have a sense that maybe his tenure is starting to tick by because he doesn't want to go out there and lie on behalf of the NFL. I know that's true, so I feel like this might be his last season. Which I'll as I make predictions, I'll put that one out there. And then the sad part was actually go back and watch I don't say this one much, but you'll appreciate it. You go back and watch that second concussion. Mm-hmm. Think about the fact, Tua's a fast guy, right? The fact that this guy sort of ran right into his field of vision, is straight in front of him and tackled him. I suspect that concussion was impairing his ability to go, oh God, I'm about to get eaten by this 300-pound guy and run away. Mm-hmm. So he wouldn't have been in that position had he not been on the field and playing with a concussion 5 days later.
I was stunned. I guess it was it this last Monday when they added that they augmented the rules and the protocol, and they added that whole fencing motion could be seen and looked at as the fact that you might have a head injury.
No, that was added 5 years ago with Tom Savage, the Texans. That fencing became a no-go. But what they changed was basically they had in the no-goes gross motor instability unless the doctor says that gross motor instability was caused by an orthopedic injury. And so there was this asterisk calling attention to it. And then so the NFL got blamed. So instead, now they've said ataxia, which is another sort of term that covers gross motor instability plus speech and other things. Now they're saying that's a no-go and there's no asterisk. What's exactly the same is it's the doctor's call about whether or not that instability is caused by a neurological event. So now the NFL sort of takes themselves out of the loop, and now it's on the doctor to diagnose, call it ataxia versus calling it he stepped on a hole in the field and that's why he fell down. Right? The doctor still has the right to say, oh, he fell down because his shoelace was untied, versus he fell down because he had ataxia or brain injury. So it's basically exactly the same, and it's still on the doctor to make that call. But what was interesting, I think, the Teddy Bridgewater thing was because it was the spotter who made that call. And I don't think the spotter has that right, but I think the NFL is pretending they had the right to say he's not in because of the scrutiny if he went back in later and it was heard that the spotter saw him stumble. So I don't think the spotter has that right to call him out from the sport. The doctor still has to examine it.
In the bigger picture, all of this, because we're now playing games on Thursday nights, 3 or 4 days after these Sundays, and this is now a regular thing. So, in the college football is now playing, the Maction's going to kick in, so they're playing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. What is the, and I'm not trying to tie any individuals into this or anything, but what is the down the road net effect on this much of these blows for some guys? Because we know, and you and I have had this conversation before about how capricious this can be, but the bottom line is there's a toll, and somebody's going to pay it.
Oh yeah, no, guys are paying it every day. I mean, we tell, I don't know, the BU team tells 10 families every 2 weeks that their loved one had CT. Like it's, and that's just the brains we look at. Yeah, we're not designing football anywhere around health. Like it's just not a thought when you're scheduling TV and counting the money. So, I mean, it's one thing at the NFL level when they can actually negotiate it and say they're getting a piece. It's not that case at college. Like I still can't believe like how much coaches are getting paid not to coach this year. It's like more than all of college football and the NCAA has ever put in the research on trying to help these guys. It's silly. So it is what it is. So we try to advise the NFL players on what's best for them. Although in every NFL player I talk to, I'm shocked by their lack of knowledge around CTE. And then, every single one, it's an embarrassment. Like Chris Borland's the only one who learned anything, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not doing this." And then, with college, they won't let us anywhere near them, and so that's a shame. So we're really focused on youth football. That is something. I'm wearing my flag football under 14. Yeah, that's where we can make a difference, right? Like kids, if we now know, and we know it's proven, and we published a paper this summer that showed that it's proven, it's beyond any doubt that playing football causes CT. Like there's no room for discussion anymore. That's true. Then how do you have children play, right? Like that's the question we have to have. Like why are we giving for sure kids brain disease or a greater risk of a brain disease, so they can look like they're heroes? Like this is a extraordinarily dangerous game that we're all talking about how dangerous it is, and that we are all fine with 1 million little kids and 1 million high school students playing. We got to do some changes, and I'd say no tackle for little kids in high school. Let's start making some more aggressive changes on how we train practice. How do we need kickoffs? Things like that.
Well, and I know the rules have helped some. It is a little bit less of a violent collision sport. I mean, it will never be completely, but for my money, this last year especially, I was really struck by the patting on the back, the self patting on the back the game was going through, because teams were using those Guardian caps.
Yeah.
The padded caps on top of their helmets. It's like, well, look, see, all our guys are in caps. We're doing a lot for this.
Yeah, and yeah, it's true. I mean, I think 90% of the reason I did it is because it's visible. Because it reduced 10 whole concussions at best, right? And of course, the NFL put that out there without actually running a formal study on it to say, well, how many collisions were they actually involved in? How hard were they? Did the caps actually help? They just went by the raw numbers because they got a good press cycle out of it, and that's fine. What no one's talking about is actually, if you think about it from a physics perspective, even if you're making gains on concussions, on linear acceleration, those pads absorbing some force, you might be losing and making you might be losing protection on CTE. You might be making CTE worse. Because if you think about if CTE is really primarily caused by rotational acceleration, you now have a helmet nearly a pound heavier and it's bigger. And so collisions are going to have a wider radius. And so the physics would be you're getting bigger hits with a heavier object on your head. You're going to get more acceleration in your brain. I don't think anyone's talking about that. I think it's hard to recreate that in a lab. But the next thing that's coming, just so you know, the word on the street is that the helmet manufacturers didn't know they could add another pound to helmets. They thought everyone wanted lighter helmets because they're safer. So they're going to start designing heavier helmets so that you don't say, you don't need the cap. We've added the pound. We've added the extra padding on the inside. Because in theory, you want hard shells versus soft shells for friction. So, I mean, this whole thing is starting, it might spin out of control with like people wearing 8-pound helmets, because it performs better on a test.
Oh man, yeah. Well, they've trained them very well right to this point where they're not used as often.
Yeah.
Of
Well, yeah,
course,
the egregious hits are mostly gone.
now they're well, of course, now they're officiating intent, which can be a little bit of a slippery slope.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But I don't mind it. I
Hey,
mean, like everyone's complaining about the quarterback stuff. Like your choice is players, these players all being dead in 20 years. And
yeah.
in general, plus, I say that sort of hyperbolically, but then for the quarterbacks, like we already went through seasons in the past before they protected them well, where we had a bunch of backups in the playoffs and everyone was miserable. So it's like
Yeah.
the bigger, strong, when you got 300-pound guys chasing you, they're so strong. No human beings can take those hits when they're small and they're smaller and less built as quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Our choice either protect the quarterbacks or have really running 3 yards of clouds of dust again, right?
Now here's a off into the future thing. Do you think it's somewhere in the next decade or so we're going to be able to see CTE in
I
a
do.
living human?
Yeah, I mean, people have been saying that for a long time, but now we're actually doing the studies that like give us the hypotheses. Like I've seen scans on PET scans that actually look like CTE. You still have to finish the study and do the math, but it seems like they've got tracers that'll attach to the tau. And hopefully those studies work out once they're finished. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
also blood tests that we're showing that there's different types of tau and that like there's certain ratios that an Alzheimer's diagnosis would have, and they're using those now clinically. We just have to figure out what the CT ratio is. So as soon as we do, there's going to be a test basically available. And so like it is right around the corner. And when that happens, like all hell's going to break loose, right? Like because we're going to be able to put like, not that anyone would probably let us, but a whole team and or in a test, and I think we would find there's no chance that 50% of of the NFL doesn't already have it. Like I think that's impossible based on the numbers I've seen.
Yeah.
And I think that would be uncomfortable for people. And of course, once you start finding it in teenagers on a regular basis, that'll be a real problem. And then the people who find out they have it, like, how do you deal with that? Like, there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, really going through mental health crises because they learn at 30 that they have a neurodegenerative disease and they have no idea how they're going to respond to it down the road.
Could you talk a little bit about the resources that you guys offer some of the families and some of the
Yeah,
stories?
yeah. No, I mean, I think that's important. So, because I was just talking to some New Zealand All Blacks today on a radio show down there, and they're a little older than me. I'm 44, and they're having symptoms. They're like, I'm having the mental health struggles. I'm doing this, and like so. When I talk about the horrors of CT, like I'm trying to help parents and players make better choices for themselves. Like once you get it, like you could end up drinking yourself to death, like some very good friend of mine just did, and some other things. Or, you could end up doing okay, into your 60s or 70s. Nick Bortacani did really well to the last, 5 to 10 years. Like, people like that. So, it's not a death sentence when you find out. So we have a helpline. So the CLF helpline, go to concussionfoundation.org and find the helpline right there on the front page. And we will literally, you tell us your history, what's going on, your level of crisis. We will find you the right doctors, and the team of doctors will find you peer support if you want it. We're starting Zoom support groups. We've got like on-call psychiatrists for the real tough cases. So we're basically trying to tell people, look, if you have it, manage your symptoms aggressively. You can be okay. Let's educate your family. You let them know this could be the cause. It's not a character issue. You're not worthless. And let's go take this thing on and find 10, 20 years to, 30, 40 more, whatever it is. You have more years, but you need help. You don't want to fight this thing alone.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, God bless you, and all the stuff that you guys work, the work that you guys do. You're doing some amazing stuff. And like I always tell you, if there's anything else I can do, you just let me know.
I appreciate it, Randy, and I will keep calling on you.
All right, Chris.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right. God bless you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that and hope you learned a little something. It wasn't an hour long, wasn't a 2 hour long session. Chris is a very smart guy, and his people are right there on the cutting edge. And hopefully in the near future, and when you're talking science, near future can be about 10 years, we're going to get something that will enable us to identify CTE in a living person. Besides warning signs and things like that, where you can definitively say this person has it, and that'll get towards the whole idea of finding a cure, finding a way to knock it out. This is the good news. This is the good news. Let's go right now to a story. It's about two unlikely friends. One is a little puppy who doesn't have a sternum, just not there for the puppy, and a little pig, a piglet. So this is the feel-good story of the week. Check this out.
He's like a little kangaroo.
How cute is.
Winston doesn't know anything's different. He just wanted to play. But the vet said to me, he can't play with his siblings right now. He's missing his sternum, and his chest was not protected properly. He would just sit there looking at me with the saddest face. I felt so bad because I didn't know if he would have a friend to play with. And then Wilma came.
Well, aren't you just the cutest thing in the world?
The first moment Winnie and Wilma met, he came right up to her and did a nose-to-nose. She was the perfect match for him because I was not worried that she would be able to injure him. Wilma was found wandering on the side of the road. And when she got here, it was like another puppy came. She played with him like a dog. They just instantly bonded. It was so cool. All they want to do is play, sleep, eat. That's the puppy life, right? When Wilma was growing, she was spending more and more time outside and away from Winston. Because I was like, oh man, even she could hurt him. So I started bringing him out on the tractor to see her.
You want to keep riding, Bud, or is it my turn? My turn?
But he still wanted to play with his friends. So we had a pig made with the name Wilma on it. And I swear it was as instant as with her.
You like your new Wilma toy?
The day he got the chest protector, it's life-changing for him.
Okay, we'll make it happen, guys.
It enabled him to start playing with Wilma again. He even got to play again with his siblings. Wilma and Winnie's friendship makes me feel so much joy and happiness. It's a very significant friendship because she came at a time where he really needed a friend, and I don't think he'll ever forget that. I just want them to live their best life, and they are doing that, both of them.
She's licking his ear.
All right, what did I tell you? That's 2 or 3 minutes. You can enjoy it. You can have fun. Maybe you learned a little bit in the interview, and maybe you cried a little bit with the animals. hey, it's not a bad day when you can do that in the same day. All right, I want to remind you where you found this podcast. The best place always to go is randycross.com. If you got it on YouTube, don't forget to like us and subscribe and everything else. Forward it to as many friends and other people you know that are on the various outlets, whether it's Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or wherever. We'd love to get this to as many people as possible. All right, that'll do it for this week's version of the Randy Cross Podcast. Again, it's Season 6, Episode 7 in the books. Time now to go away like we always do with a little happy trails.